Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I am so excited to bring our guest to you today. Coach Dana Cavalea is a high performance and executive leadership coach. He's the former director of strength and conditioning and performance for the New York Yankees. I'm a New Yorker. We're going to celebrate. Coach led the New York Yankees to a world championship in 2009. That same year, he was awarded the Nolan Ryan Award, given to top strength and performance coaches in Major League Baseball, as voted by his peers. In addition to working with high-profile athletes, CEOs, and executives, he's an international speaker and consultant, coaching Fortune 500 corporate workforces, finance teams, sports teams, universities, and organizations to optimize their overall performance. Coach Dana is a two-time accomplished author with Habits of a Champion, Nobody Becomes a Champion by Accident, and Habits of a Champion Team, the formula to winning big in sports, life, and business. That is a mouthful. Welcome to the show.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Lyndsay. I appreciate it.
It is my absolute pleasure. So the first way I start every show is I ask the question, would you please tell us your story? Just give us
my gosh. My story is it's a story of victory and it's a story of failure, just like everybody else's.
Yeah.
So I grew up on Long Island. Sometimes the accent pops out, sometimes it doesn't. Migrated my way up to Westchester County, New York, and then I started working with the Yankees as a 19-year-old, actually, down in Tampa. So I got my start in an interesting way. I always wanted to be a baseball player myself. I aspired to be a New York Yankee, but as a player. And there came a day. The day comes for most players where we have to size ourselves up and realize who we really are. And at the end of the day, I knew my talent set was not good enough to go to the next level as a player. So I always loved to train. I always loved to train to be a great athlete. So I fell into this, program of sports medicine, exercise science, and I go to the University of South Florida down in Tampa. And from there, I realized that the New York Yankees just happened to have spring training in Tampa. So here I am, and I hear that they're coming to town in February. So I drive my old beat up car. I was working at Busch Gardens at the time. I had no money, and I drive up to the stadium. I park like a mile and a half away because I couldn't afford to park any closer. And I get up to the stadium, and I'm on the fence. And, the old chain link fence, and I have my old flip phone, camera phone, and I'm taking pictures of Derek Jeter. I'm taking pictures of Andy Pettitte. I'm taking pictures of Mariano and all these guys, and I'm sending them back home to my friends up north who were freezing their butts off in February. And I'm sending these pictures up to my parents, and I'm saying, this is amazing. And then I get this idea to become an intern strength coach at the University of South Florida, under a guy by the name of Ron McKeefrey. And Mac calls me in his office one day, and he says, "Hey, Dane, I want to talk to you." I said, "Okay." It's usually not good when your leader wants to talk to you privately in the office. And in where I come from, I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to get whacked and I'm going to be sent home." And he said, "Listen, I have an opportunity for you." So all of a sudden, the whole tone of the meeting changed. And he said, "Listen, I just got a call from the head strength coach with the New York Yankees. They're in town, and he needs an assistant to help him during spring training to basically hand out towels, hand out water, and clean the weight room."
Yeah.
Would you have any interest in that? I said, "Listen, I just got back from there. I would have huge interest in that.
Yeah.
When can I start?" And he said, "Well, you start tomorrow." So the next day, I drive my car, again, the old beat up car, up to the stadium, but this time I don't have to park a mile and a half away. I got a spot up front. They pull me in. I park this piece of junk up there. I walk into the office, and the lady says, are you Dana Cavalea? I said, "Yeah." And she says, "Okay." And she put a lanyard around my neck with a pass that says C for clubhouse and F for field access. So, by the way, I'm a lifelong fan
Yeah.
as a kid, I used to go to the games with my dad all the time. And I was like, all right, cool. What's next? And they walk me into the tunnel, into the clubhouse. Next thing you know, they're throwing me in Yankees gear. And next thing you know, they're walking me out to the field in the middle of the circle, middle of team stretch. And it was the craziest time of my life, because in that quick time, everything changed. And I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, part of my story is, listen, you could be on one side of the fence one day and you could be on the other side of the fence the next day,
Yeah.
but you got to put yourself in that position.
That's right.
And again, it wasn't knowledge that got me in that position. It was, as my mother would say, it was moxie and chutzpah,
That's right.
and we just keep pushing through. And that's how it all started. So again, I started as an intern. Next thing you know, a couple injuries later, I'm 22 years old and I'm the head strength coach for the New York Yankees, and traveling all over the country with a bunch of rock stars.
Oh my
And
God.
and that from there, that was kickoff.
Wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're 22 then, and I imagine you go from, assisting to, now you're the strength coach to, okay, the Yankees is a world-class organization. You had to see some incredible things and just be a sponge for learning. What were some of the things that were the most impactful to you that you learned along the way?
Well, I couldn't have this facial hair that I have today. That was number one. but
True.
but
Unlike the Red Sox.
yeah, no, exactly. I would say the number one thing that I learned was how to be a professional.
Mm,
Now, again, coming from Long Island, sometimes my language could say a little bit differently, but ultimately, you show up on time, you do not only what you're supposed to do and what you're asked to do, but you do what needs to get done,
mm,
and you go above and beyond, right? You get there early, you stay late if you have to, and you do whatever it takes to get the job done. And our culture, with the Yankees was very simple. If you don't win a world championship, you're a loser.
mm.
And that was it. There was no like, well, we tried. We did our best. We came close. Derek Jeter would always say, listen, you either win or lose. It's black or white. There's nothing in between. This is sports.
Mm.
And I think that mentality and that culture, it's a lot for people to swallow.
Mm.
And don't forget,
Hardcore.
for us, like, it's hardcore. We worked for 9 months straight. Sometimes it was 19 days in a row without a day off, because that's the league rules.
Yeah.
You could play 19 days in a row, but you can't play 20.
Mm.
And then you get a day off and you can go play another 19 days.
Mm-hmm.
Every 6 days you're on the road, traveling through the night. I always tell people, when you turn the game off, we're
You're still
getting ready.
working. Yeah.
I got guys in the weight room, or we're got guys in the weight room. Then you're eating at like 10 o'clock at night. You're showering and you're getting on a bus and you're going to the airport and you're flying to Seattle, potentially across the country. So it takes a certain mentality. And what I learned was, if you give yourself an out, you'll probably take it.
Yeah.
So I've learned, whether I work with people in a weight loss capacity, in a training capacity, in a leadership capacity, in a personal development capacity, whatever it is, don't give them an out,
Mm.
and just be relentless and pound on them in a good way, because they're telling you what they want, right? When I coach people or I lead people, first thing I ask them is, what do you want? What do you want?
No, you're
And
good
they're
at
going
this.
to
I
tell
know.
you. Yes. So
Yeah.
they're either going to know what they want, or they're going to have no idea.
Yeah. You did that on a call that I was on with you, where you were talking to one of the guys on the call, and you said, what do you want? And he answered you and you're like, no, what do you want? And you kept digging deeper. And I'd love you to talk about that philosophy a little bit, and why you dig that way, because you really did get to the bottom of it. And I think most people don't understand their what or their why. And I just loved how you did that. It was hardcore, which is where you're from, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my intent in doing that is never to embarrass somebody.
Yeah.
It's never to belittle somebody,
Yeah.
but it is meant to put them up against a rope, right? Like
Mhm.
boxing, right? You push them
Yeah.
up into the corner, you push them up against the ropes, and you keep them there until they figure out a way to get off the rope.
Mm.
And what you witnessed was just a very short, condensed
Yeah.
excerpt of that. But the whole idea was to get him to think differently, right? I wanted to create an emotional snap on him that says, "Hey, I'm being pushed into this corner. This guy's not allowing me to answer, you know, with the same bullshit I typically answer myself with. He's
Mm.
forcing me to answer differently.
Yeah.
And I got an audience and I
Yeah.
got all this going on."
Yeah.
In that, in that, right, in that sort of emotional hijacking, we got him to speak differently. And we
Yeah.
got to the root of what he really is after. And most people, when you ask them, what do you want? They tell you something that's safe. They tell you something that's
Yeah.
topical. They tell you something that's easy, but it's usually not what they want.
Yeah. I think it was really fun to watch that because your point in that was you probably already have what you want. And
Yeah.
what do you really need? What's really what are you after?
Yeah.
And I think people gloss over what they want because they think it's what they're supposed to want, instead
Yep.
of what they
It's the
really need.
it's it's so common, and it's and again, we have to keep ourselves even by asking ourselves, well, what do we
Totally.
really want? Because we could all very easily go through the motions today.
Hmm.
We see someone else on LinkedIn. Oh, they started a business, they got a
Yeah.
job, they got a raise, they got a this, they got a that, they moved into this nice house, right? And
Hmm.
before you know it, you're spending your whole life
Catching up.
mimicking or catching up.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you got to be careful because you could build something you don't even
Mhm.
want.
So talk to
Um,
me a little bit about you had this hardcore environment in the Yankees. How did you guys handle failure? Because failure, I think, is such an important teaching point. But I'm really curious in this environment. I mean, if there's only two options, we win the World Series or we lose, like, how
yeah.
do you handle that?
Well, you know, if you, I always say you got to know the rules of the game in which you play.
Hmm.
So in the game that we play and played, failure um, was inevitable.
Yeah.
So if you study the greats of all time, right, they always use this analogy, like, you could fail 7 out of 10 times and you'll still be a Hall of Fame player. So we knew that failure was a part of the deal.
Right.
So if you know that failure is a part of the deal, to think that you're excluded from that is crazy.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I would always admire about the great players is that they accepted failure.
Yeah.
They didn't fight it off or push it away or run from it. They accepted it. And it's funny because like last year I was at Mariano Rivera was moving from his house in Harrison to White Plains.
Mm.
Built a beautiful house in White Plains.
Hmm.
And he says, "Hey, can you help me move my gym from Harrison to White Plains?" I said, "Okay." So I arranged this moving truck.
Hmm.
And the two of us are sitting in his empty house in Harrison, outside of the gym equipment downstairs, and two like dining room chairs. So we're facing each other, and I'm like sitting there saying, look, I know this guy for you know almost 2 decades now.
Visionary leaders, are you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together.
And I sit across from him like, I got to ask this question. I said, "Mo, like, how did you deal with giving up the World Series to the Arizona Diamondbacks, back in the early 2000s?" And I said, "What would you do differently?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Buddy," he goes, "Look, I would do nothing differently.
Mm.
That I would throw the same pitch in the same spot and I'd do it all over again. He said, "Do you want to know my biggest regret? My biggest regret was this, that I had to wait a whole off season to get back out on that mound and compete again." Where you start thinking of, okay, the average person would potentially, contract and run and never want to be
Yeah.
in that situation again. But he accepted failure. He accepted it as a part of the game, but he never doubted himself.
Mm.
And I think that's a big part of things. And when you think about, leading anything today,
Mm.
you have to have a level of self-belief and conviction within you,
Yeah.
um, that allows you to sort of keep passing on to the next level and moving
Mm.
on to the next level. I think a lot of times folks crack at like even a slight failure,
Hmm.
and it's like you have to think higher of yourself than that.
Yeah, I agree. So this is a perfect segue because I wanted to ask, you get to coach a lot of CEOs and you're in the business world. So you get to observe how they coach and how they lead. What are some of the observations of your favorite leaders that you've worked with?
Yeah. My favorite leaders, um, what I appreciate about them is that they're not wimps. And I say that because they're not attacking people.
Hmm.
They're dialoguing with people.
Hmm.
And they're in doing that, they're understanding where the person or the persons that they're leading, where they're really at.
Mm.
And they make decisions from that, as opposed to getting all tissy in a high emotion state
Oh yeah.
and hammering. The best of the best, they don't do that, right? They have the ability to regulate emotion. I have a chapter in my book here, Habits of a Champion, that says, "Don't get too high, don't get too low."
Yeah.
And whether it's in sport or whether it's in business,
Hmm.
there's going to be situations in front of you that can get you real high and get you real low if you let it. Your job is to ride that midline. And the best that I've worked with, that's what they can do well. They're committed people. They're they're very good at following a schedule, following a plan.
Yeah.
They keep their vision in front of them at all times, and they adjust as conflict, as problems
Mm.
showcase themselves. They adjust and adapt.
I love
On
that
the
you
other
said that.
side,
Oh yeah. No, we'll go there, but I love that you said
yeah,
that because um what I coach with leaders is you do have to meet people where they are. You need to know who they are. You need to know what they're good at so you can advocate for them. And the ones who belittle and the ones who embarrass and the ones who break trust, it becomes just a job. And those
yeah,
people will never stretch. They will never
yeah,
give you their heart. They will never go above and beyond. They will do what they are asked and tap out and leave. And that's what breeds a culture of mediocrity. So
yeah. No,
I'm
no,
always
for
trying to tell
for
leaders,
sure.
like, if you're going to run around like a raving lunatic, you can expect your people to do the same thing because that's
Yeah,
what you're modeling. And it's really
yep.
dangerous.
It's true. And now I will say this. Um, I heard a coach, in sport, I forgot who it was, use this term one time, and he called it a thunderbolt.
Mm.
And he said, you can't be afraid though, to every once in a while throw a thunderbolt out there that
Yeah.
shocks everybody. They're like,
Yeah.
could you believe? But if all you do is throw those thunderbolts,
No, then it,
not you're gonna struggle.
well,
And
and a thunderbolt doesn't have to just be bad news. It can be just something hugely impactful. Like we're making a decision, we're, acquiring a company where, I mean, it can be something strategic and
yeah, or
bold.
or or it,
But
or it could be saying, hey Lindsay, can I talk to you in the office for a minute? And saying and almost again provoking emotion out of you and saying,
yeah,
listen, I just want to tell you, I got some work back from you. You're better than this.
yeah,
Like this
yeah,
is not good work from you.
yeah,
Right. And that is a great leader has a way of putting that,
that's right.
but getting to you um at the roots to inspire you
Hmm.
to be better. And
Well,
as long as the intent of the leader is to make people better, that's great.
yeah.
Now the tough part is, like, there are people on your team that you have to get rid of. They're
Yes.
not they're not performing. They have emotional issues, they have family issues, they have stuff going on. And
Yep.
maybe at one point they were great, but now they're not. That person may need to exit the team, but you could still do it in a way that's you know, that's good.
Yeah, I
And
agree with
like,
that. And I think that when you lead with heart and when you meet people where they are and you're consistent with your messaging and you're trying to get the best out of people, when you have to deliver those tough messages, they come a little easier.
yeah,
And, I always said I never wanted to be good at laying people off. I thought it was like the worst thing I would ever have to do because I was going to impact someone's life in such a bad way. And I couldn't sleep. And that call would come. And I would have to read a script and follow,
yeah,
but they knew it wasn't me. They knew it was something I had to do. And most of the time, they understood, they expected it, and they stayed in touch with me, and we're still friends to this day. So if you can lead with heart that way, those tough messages, they're a lot easier to deliver.
yeah,
So
yep, it's
flipping the
true.
coin to where we were just going before I interrupted you. So give me some of the observations of the worst leaders you've seen.
Yeah, they're bouncy. Like they're like one
Mhm.
of those high bounce balls that you hit the
Mhm.
ground even just a little bit, and they're all of a sudden they're up to the roof,
Yeah.
and then they come back down again, and they're back up to the roof,
Yeah.
and you don't know what you're gonna get. Now, again, I do think there is a piece of that that's good, right? Where you keep people, guessing. But when it's all the time, and it's almost like, bipolarism as a leader, that becomes dangerous.
Yeah.
A, to the leader, and B, to the team, and C,
Yeah.
to the entity, as a whole. So people don't really like people like that
Mhm.
bounce around all the time, and they're unpredictable, and
Yeah.
they're very challenging. So I've had people reach out to me and say, "Hey, I want coaching." And I know right from the first call, I'm like, this person is going to be a fucking pain in my ass, for
Yep.
lack of a better way of saying it.
Yep.
They're just going to be difficult. You
Yeah.
got some people that are open, they're excited, they're thrilled to
Mhm.
get better, and some, like, you can't even schedule them. They're just so difficult. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, I'm like, no matter how great I am at what I do, this person at this stage in their life, they can't be helped.
Yeah. I've
So
had that. It's tough.
you get
And
the
when you get those people, I remember this one guy I was coaching, I gave him, homework. I'm like, this is what you need to do. Fix your LinkedIn profile, take these steps, build this
Yep.
thing, do this here. He did none of it. And then we
Yeah.
get back on the phone and he's like, what else do you think I should do? I'm like, how about anything I told you already? Start with that.
Seriously, right?
And he's like, well, where do we go from here? I'm like, I'm done. I can't help you anymore.
Yeah.
And, he didn't want to hear it, but he didn't
Yep.
want to hear anything I gave him either. So,
Yeah. It's it's a common thing.
yeah.
So being open, I remember this. This is a good little tidbit here. I remember I was 19 years old. I'm in the Yankees weight room in Tampa, and Derek Jeter walks in, and he goes, "Yo, what do I got today?" And I'm looking behind me like he's talking to me.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh man, this guy, I mean, I was working at Busch Gardens part-time, the guy on the back of the tram welcoming people to the park in between my Yankee gig just to make a few bucks. This guy's worth $30 million,
Oh my
and he's
God.
been in the league for 5 years, and he's like, what do I got today?" And in that moment, I realized something. I never forgot it. I'm talking about it 20 years later. Um, that having an openness
Yeah.
is a really important thing. It's a great trait to have, if you want to elevate to your next level.
Yeah. I love that. Stay
You know?
curious. Mm.
Yeah.
So
So I was like, pretty cool.
that's amazing. I have goosebumps. So talk a little bit about your books. Tell me what
So yeah, I never intended to be an author. I never intended to write books,
same.
but I started writing them, and I actually enjoyed them quite a bit. And I always came at them from one standpoint. I would, as a coach, always be reading books. Yeah, I'd always read different things on coaching and this and that and the other thing, whatever. And I would read these books on like personal development, written by these personal development people. And I would say, okay, well, if I read these books, I'll have the tools to make others great, and I'll be able to be great too because I'm
Yeah.
reading these books from these personal development experts. And then I started reading them, and I started reading about like what they're saying and some of this stuff. And I had a really cool advantage because I would go into a workplace every day that had the greatest performers at what they do. Like they were hand selected from the entire world. They were amazing. I mean, these guys were the best of the best. They were. And I'd say, wait, these guys are the best of the best, and they don't do any of this shit. What is this guy talking about? And I started to see all these gaps, and I'd start to talk to players about it. And I start to learn about their mentality and how they viewed things. And it
Mhm.
was not in sync
With what
with
you're
any
reading.
of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, look, I'm going to write a book. First one is going to be called Habits of a Champion. I'm going to talk about players. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about attitudes and all this, but from a real like perspective.
Sure.
Basically, the book says, open the book, start on any page, wherever you are, and you'll be good to go, right? You'll
Mhm.
you'll extract something that'll help you in your performance today.
Love it.
So I started to write from that standpoint. I wrote the book Habits of a Champion. Then I started to have all these companies and teams reach out and say, "Hey, do you do anything with teams?" So I
Yeah.
said, "Let me write a book. Let me write a book for teams." And then I got to a point where I was like, "Okay, I need a break from the books." And I started to write a bunch of kids' books teaching lessons to kids on development
Love
because
it.
I said, I meet all these adults that have all these things going on. Well, what if we could help the kids and build them
Yeah.
up? And I started writing for kids too. So that's
Well, keep writing for
oh
kids because they need your learnings, my friend. I
yeah,
see kids, especially, well, every all the kids managed through the pandemic, but I think that really set a lot of kids back socially.
yeah,
And right now, what I see, I have teenage twins, and what I see most is the second somebody's uncomfortable, I'm out. I'm done. I'm out. And
contraction. Yeah,
they run the other way. And it's I've had to really challenge my kids and anybody I can get my hands on to say, you're gonna be okay. There's nothing that's gonna happen to you right now. This
yeah,
feels uncomfortable, but growth
yeah,
and comfort do not coexist. You're gonna do this. And we were
yeah.
just in Dallas visiting some friends, and my son was like, I don't want to ride horses. And I'm like, nope, they arranged it. We're all riding horses. And he's like, but I don't want to. And I'm like, nope, you're going to try something new and it's going to be
Yep.
uncomfortable and you're going to be okay. Wouldn't you know, the only horse that got kicked was his. But he was okay.
Figures,
Everybody was
right?
fine. But he did
Yeah.
it. And I was so proud of him. And we all had a really good time. And I just
That's
think they
that's
got to learn
huge.
resilience. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to jump in the deep end of the pool and figure out how to swim.
Hmm. So what inspires you?
I can give like a standard answer of like, well, growth inspires
Oh,
me.
give me your answer.
But I honestly like I just love to build. I like to build businesses. I like to build people. I like to build companies. I like to build. I just like to build. Like writing to me is building. So
Love it.
that's my inspiration. I'm never short on inspiration. I don't need to read a book, read a quote, listen to a sermon, anything for inspiration. I've always been self-inspired. And
Mm,
then obviously when you meet other people and you see other people, that sort of energy that's transferred continues
yes.
to create more of the inspiration. But I don't search for it. I'm fortunate enough to be one of those people that has a lot of inspiration within.
I love
And
it.
as long as I'm building and as long as I'm creating, uh, I'm good. I'm good. I like to make sure that everything is going up around me, whether it's
Hmm.
people, whether it's, I love real estate structures.
Hmm.
Um,
And you're doing
I
something
just
a little
that's my deal. I like to build.
you're doing something a little different than the Yankees right now. Aren't you in a different chapter of your life?
Very different.
Tell us
Yeah.
about that.
So I still do a lot of coaching.
Hmm.
Yeah, I do a lot of coaching, but my wife and I a couple years ago we started a farm, and it has very quickly grown into something amazing. And we distribute probably, man, 10 to 15,000 pounds of meat per month to customers around the country. So it's Freedom Farms here. It's in upstate New York, about 3 hours from Manhattan, and we ship meat all over the U.S. And it's amazing because you want to talk about discomfort.
Yeah.
We're in an area that we never wanted to be, so there's discomfort. We're constantly dealing with people, right, that are sometimes difficult to motivate. Discomfort. You're in freezing temperature. You don't get a day off. You got to work with those animals. Discomfort.
Yeah.
And through all of that, we are finding comfort.
It's incredible. It's such a switch
So
from the life in far away from there, from down south in the city and West.
it is, we have a lot of in baseball, like a lot of the guys come from the South, so you get a lot of farm boys, a lot of ranchers. So I was always around that mentality, Texans and things like that. So I always say there's nothing more American than baseball and cattle. So I feel like we've now bridged the gap and linked the two. I mean, a lot of my former players we send me to, and it's a cool deal to bridge and link the two. And coaching's a lot of what I do. It's not who I am, but it's what I do and what I enjoy. And farm also is a great builder of confidence and a great builder of just fortitude.
I love it. I love it. And what's next for you?
Well, I'm always building, so I'm not 100% sure what's next, but I am going to start launching some programs. I have another book that's going to be coming out some point this year. I'll give you it's called Stop Sucking, Start Winning. That's going to be coming out at some point this year. And just a few I would always coach people one-on-one, and now I'm going to get into more like launching certain programs that are specific to different groups of people that are dealing with different things.
Love it.
So I'm excited for it. Something different, something new, but we're always building.
I love it. And what would you like your legacy to be?
It's an interesting question because I actually ask that quite a bit to those that I work with. For me, I just want to be known as somebody that has a relentless spirit to push and drive and move forward and motivate at the same time. So, that same spirit for me, I wanted to have the same for others. So, I've actually, when I think of the word legacy, I think of it less actually in the coaching world. And for me now, I think of it more actually in the farming world because obviously no farms, no food. And a lot of farmers have struggled through of late, costs are rising. So I'm excited from a legacy standpoint to make an impact on that community that has pretty much been untouched in a long time.
Yeah, they need some help for sure. Well, Coach, this has been such a joy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and your stories.
Yeah.
They're so fantastic. So guys, if you like this episode of Heartbeat for Hire, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or go leave a 5-star review at Apple and Spotify. Coach, where can people find you?
Well, you could find me at danacavalea.com. I also do a lot of rogue writing on LinkedIn. I like to, be contrarian, and I like to ruffle people a little bit on LinkedIn. So you can check me out there. And
I love it. Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this episode, everyone. Take care of yourselves, lead with heart, and have a great day. Thanks for listening to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or consider leaving a 5-star review and a great rating at Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.